Cooperative Extension is going to come here with an unknown number for rent. So I would not support an amendment to that.
Okay, Representative McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wouldn't support one without the numbers either. That's why I said the numbers should be with the cooperative extension and without the cooperative extension. And I think that it's only fair that the delegation get to vote on, are they going to support, $1 million to move the cooperative extension down here, or are they not? So if it costs $2 million to do the core with the cooperative extension, but only $1 million to do it without it, that's a big difference. So I think we should have the opportunity to vote yes or no once the numbers, with it and without it.
Yes, Representative Schmidt.
Yeah,
and then Algren.
Mr. Representative Fleck made an amendment, but I believe the instruction was with a dollar amount not to exceed. I haven't heard a dollar amount yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that not to exceed. Do you want to?
I would amend. Can I amend that?
Yeah.
Just doing some quick calculation, amend not to exceed $1 million, and that may be overly generous. I'm not sure, but that's what I would say.
Okay.
An amendment.
Okay, so that what we have, and Representative McConkey, would you agree with not to exceed $1 million as an amendment?
I certainly, at this point for discussion, certainly would.
Okay, so there is a motion by Representative Fleck, second by Representative McConkey, and now we're going to add the amendment that we would like to see what it would, the maximum price to do the core facility not to exceed $1 million. Yes.
Madam Chair, could I just hear the whole amendment?
That's
the
it.
whole thing with the amendment.
The core, to keep the core, just the core facility.
Okay.
The maximum price not to exceed $1 million to keep and fix the core facility.
Okay.
So that's the amount of money that we're doing into that. Representative Algren, remember, Representative Schmidt, Algren, and Numberger.
No, I thought there might be some discussion on the amendment. Getting back to Representative McCarthy's concern, if we pass this amendment, and we get back to Representative McConkey's concern also about the rent then being prohibitive, I just don't know where we are on the extension service.
We aren't on the, let's not talk about the extension service. If we vote, let me say, if I can give you a procedural process. We can vote for this. If you want to be able to take a straw vote for, if it's not too expensive, we would like to have extension down here. If it is too expensive, it's going to go to, but that would be a separate one that we could talk about after we've decided, because it looks like there is support to keep the core. You may not have that same feeling, support to keep the core, and I understand that. But I think that we need to be able to figure out whether we want the core.
No, my only point, Madam Chairman, is I think the decision to retain or not retain the cooperative extension has a lot to say about the $1 million. Sure. That's my only point.
Representative Algren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. From where I sit, we're looking at basically about $300,000 to completely demolish the entire structure. And we've kind of thrown around a figure that if we amortize what we give to the cooperative extension in rent, that amortizes out to be about $500,000 over time. So that's about $800,000 that we have in what we would spend. Okay, we spend $300,000 to demolish the entire building. We spend about $500,000 amortize for the rent for cooperative extension. So if we can, within the core or a portion of the core, house cooperative extension and have whatever else that's in there and spend $800,000 maybe to $1 million, we have probably made a reasonably sound business decision for the taxpayers of Carroll County. So it may not be the entire core, and maybe perhaps one of the most strapping problems that they have in the design is that the co-op is in the very front, oldest part of the building. And maybe that part of the building is what should not also be there. Maybe we need a little less square footage and get rid of part of the core. Because I see some freeze lines that might work around that, where that pellet boiler goes straight across, kind of by the electrical room and back around. Maybe we need to lop that off and spend $800,000 to $1 million. You know, but if we're in that zone, I think we've made a reasonable business decision based on what the taxpayers would be spending and what we would, those considerations for their taxpayer dollars in the future. Not future needs, but what are they paying, and are we keeping it the same or are we not? So I think I'd be in favor of the motion. I think it should also be added, if I may add an amendment to the motion, that it does include the housing of cooperative extension. This $800 to $1 million figure would include the possibility to it, because that's certainly in part of my mindset of why the value, and that, of course, it would also have, you know, the pellet stove boiler room housed, you know, wherever it might need to be piping-wise. Might not be exactly right there. Might move it just a little bit, but that those two items are still certainly contained, and then what other best uses would be to maintain that budget would also be considered. And that's what we're looking for.
At the moment, we do not have extension in the motion or the amended
Second.
motion. Okay, Representative Umberger, McCarthy, and Merrill.
Okay. So you agree to that, a friendly amendment to
Well,
your...
wait a minute, let's,
We're moving on, I think.
We're moving
I would
on.
agree.
I'm sorry.
is everybody agreed that the extension is not in this
Correct.
motion at the moment? Okay, go ahead, Representative Umberger.
Okay. From what was provided to us today, okay, based on these numbers here were just for the core facility. There was nothing dealing with the future.
That's right.
Okay, so we already know the projections of renovating the core based on this plan. Okay, so my question is, what are we in fact asking them to do differently? Because we've got a range of 500 or 300 to 500 for co-op. We have 50,000 for the maintenance facility. We have 125,000 for the laundry room. And we have a range of 50,000 to 600,000 for the roof options. So my question becomes, what are they going to do differently between now and our next meeting that they haven't done already? And so I'm trying to say that if we use the $1 million figure, okay, then we're gonna, you know, trade off between, you know, 500,000 for the co-op and 50,000 for the roof.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I guess that we're not asking them to do anything different than what they've already provided us. And so, you know, I do think that we all agree that the core is what, you know, I mean, from the conversation anyhow, that we don't want anything more than the core. So, and then we also, the co-op, I think, needs to eventually get back to us as to whether or not they think what they think they can afford. And we also have to decide how much the commissioners are going to, out of the total renovation, how much of it is going to be accorded to the co-op. And that I think is, you know, part of our decision-making process. But as far as a dollar figure, they've already made, we already have that. It's nothing new. They just need to decide out of this dollar figure you know, which things they're going to do. And if, you know, if they want the sense, you know, if you take the low numbers on every single one of these, you've got 350, 475, you've got $500,000, $525,000, plus an additional 200,000 or whatever it was for demolition. Okay, so we're at 650, 850. So we already are at a number lower than the million that we've offered them, right here in front of us.
You know, one thing that's not on that sheet, if I may, is just this, maybe you added that, is this demolition.
Right, I did.
Did you
That
pick that
was,
up? Okay.
yeah, that was the 200,000 to bring it up to,
Gotcha.
you know,
Okay.
around
I'm
800,000.
with you.
So if we're looking for something, we need to look at less than 800,000 if we don't like that number, but giving them $1 million is saying, we want you to expand from the low number that's been provided to us to some other number, without knowing whether or not the co-op can afford a different number. So, I just want to say that for me, I agree that the core is what we ought to do, and that they ought to come back to us next time in that $800,000 range,
Okay.
which is here already, to provide us with some sort of thought process. And the other thing I want to say is that any time you leave empty space in a building, i.e. the 6,000 square feet that are there, we're going to see growth in county government to fill that 6,000 square feet. And if you want an example, just take a look at the Conway Middle School, because that was going to be mothballed. And I'm telling you, you walk around that building and there is very little left that is mothballed out of that facility. Anytime you leave empty space, you grow government.
Okay, Representative McCarthy, Merrow, and Fleck.
I have two things I'd like to bring up, Madam Chair. One is everybody, or quite a few people, are tossing around the letter G here, $50,000 to repair and patch the existing metal roof. Now, all along, we've been led to believe that the roof leaks rather badly, but the problem is they don't know where it's leaking, because there's a double roof. So if they don't know where the leaks are, how are they going to go up there for $50,000 and patch it? And the other thing is, I would like to ask if this proposal made by Representative Fleck includes doing away with all four wings, and we're just talking now about the core only.
Yes.
The core is the only thing that is in the amendment is the core, not to exceed $1 million.
But what about the two, the 1.5 wings?
Gone.
Gone.
Gone,
This
they're
is
gone,
gone.
okay.
With that, this
Okay.
would be the core.
Okay, thank you.
This would be the core. And before I get to anybody in the public, we're in the voting mode, but I think I'll open it to the public because there are a few that want to say it. But Representative McCarthy, you have got yours, Representative Merrow, and then Fleck.
I don't disagree with anything you've been said. But I have a and I certainly would support a motion to tear everything down to the core. But I have a problem putting a dollar figure on it right now. I mean, I don't know how far we are away from this. We're not sure what else is gonna come up. And let's say we put the minimum cost on here and it goes over by 25,000. Is that gonna lock us into that 25,000? That we can't do it because it's 25,000?
We're far, far away from going out for bonding.
Absolutely. You're
We're
right.
far, far away.
That's why I don't think we should be talking about dollars at the moment. I think probably the motion should just say, tear down everything except the core, and then look at the rest of it as Mark originally suggested, piece by piece. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, we'll just keep adding stuff here. By the time we're done, we're not even sure what we're voting on.
Representative Fleck.
Well, I don't know if I can,
You can.
if I can expand on that discussion or clarify anything. However,